Okay. We're going to tie an Adams parachute. I'm going to tie it in a size 14, and I'm going to start first by adding some gray thread to the hook. Wrap it on there. I started about middle way on the hook, and cut that off. And then I'm going to take some grizzly and brown hackle, and I'm going to pull off, I'm going to put these together, and I'm going to pull off a clump or a few of the hackles. I put them together, it's easier than mixing them. And then I'm going to pull them off, and I'm going to place them about the length of the hook. And I'm going to place them at the back. This is going to be the tail of our Adams. And I usually just do a pinch wrap where I come under and then come up and pull up on it. And I do a couple of those, if I can get it there, and pull up, and then I'll just go ahead and wrap it on, hold me and wrap it on down, center it. Okay, come up to the front there. Okay, and I'll come up to about 2/3 of the hook, and I'm going to use for my post, I'm use some poly yarn in white. I have to also use calf tail is pretty common use as parachute posts. So I'm going to take a piece I've cut. And the one thing that you have to be careful of, I'm not, excuse me, I'm not going to use this much. I tend to want to overuse my materials, and you really don't need a lot. So I took about half that in a small amount, and you can always thin it out. And the way I tie it on is I will wrap it around my thread, kind of bend it around my thread, and that way then I can center it, and then I will wrap it in front, and I'll come around the back. Okay, and wrap it again in front. Okay, and then a trick that I use, since I don't have a parachute post to stand this, I'll turn the fly on its side, and holding the parachute out, I will wrap. Well, in this case, it looks like I'm wrapping horizontal. You can wrap it vertical, keeping the fly up, but I will wrap up, probably about, on this size, an eighth of an inch. Okay, and I wrap back down. Okay, that'll do. Come on down now. This is really about the most tedious part. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and stand it up there. And then I'll just go ahead and finish wrapping it. Okay. There, and then I'll do a few wraps. Oops. Come on down there. Okay, I'm gonna do a few wraps behind it. Cross over a few in front of it. And stand that up. There we go. Okay. Get that. And I'll trim up the rest of this when I'm finished. Okay, the next part is I'm going to take two hackles, again a grizzly and a brown, and since this is a size 14, I've measured them on a hackle gauge, for to get this proper size that I needed. And that is a 14. And this one up there is a 14. So that'll do. And what I'll do is I will put these together like I did with the others. And I'm going to strip off the webby part on both of these. Sometimes it's easy, some is easier than the others, but I'm going to strip off quite a bit. You can do this ahead of time, and it does save time. Okay. And then I'm going to trim my stems. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the dull side. There's the shiny side and the dull side. That'll be the dull side, the shiny side. And I'm going to put the dull side towards me. And with that side facing towards me, I'm going to pull off about 1/4 of an inch of the top webbing. And what that'll do is that'll help start your wrap when you start to wrap it. So then I will tie this in. Tie it in here on the side. Okay, tying in front. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wrap it around the post up towards the top of the post that I've done. There we go. And wrap back down. Wrap it in good. Okay, and trim off the end and try not to trim the line. Okay. The next part is I want to do my dubbing, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start my dubbing. I find starting my dubbing at the back works pretty well, so I'm going to wrap to the back. And you can use some dubbing wax. You don't have to. I find it works easier, especially when I want to make a taper. I want to taper the body a little bit because I can get a little bit, control the tightness of how I wrap my dubbing on the line if I put a little bit. So put a little sticky on there, kind of get rubbed in there, and I'm going to use, in this case, I'm going to use some super fine dry fly dubbing in Adams Gray. Again, you don't need very much. The tendency is to overuse. So just pull little pieces off, just set there on the line and twist. And you usually want a little less on the back because you want it to taper up or get a little thicker as you go towards the front of the fly. So I got a little too much to see. There we go. So we'll put on that dubbing. More dubbing. And you can always pull the dubbing off if you have too much, or always add if you don't have enough. There we go. Let's see how that does. We got that there. And then I'm going to wrap, start pretty tight, starting at the tail. We're going to wrap forward. Okay, I got a little fat there, so I'm going to kind of go back and forth. What I'm trying to do is give somewhat of a look of a shape of a bug, which of course does taper towards the tail. Add a little more on there. And I'm going to want to come in front of the hook too. So let's add some. up here in front. Okay. Once I have that dubbed, I am going to wrap my hackle, and there again I'm going to, you want your hackle standing more upright more than down, that way the fly will sit down in the film of the water. So if I've done this right, it should wrap with the hackles facing up. That's another, so I can take my hackle pliers, pull these even, and get them kind of tight. Clamp those, and I'm going to start wrapping right here to get them started. And I'm going to wrap down the hook and up about a couple of times. One more time. Okay, once I have that, I'm going to take my thread and I'm going to go around flat. And that's the way you keep from grasping the hackle when you tie it off. It took me a while to figure that out. So I'm going to just wrap, spiral around there. Okay. Around one more time. Alright. And then, let's see. Alright. Now let's go once more. I want it to end up. It's kind of, there we go. And then I'm going to trim that excess. Okay. And at that point, I am going to take my half hitch tool, and you can just tie it with your hands if you want. It might be easier. And then I'm going to wrap. I'm going to do it horizontally some to keep from trapping as many hairs. Trapped a few there. Pull it through, pull it out. I'm going to trim it. I'm going to trim up some of, yeah, that's fine. That'll do just fine right there. I'll trim some of that off. There. Trim my parachute down, or my indicator down some. Slick my tail back up. And you have a parachute Adams.